Warning. This podcast contains true stories that are not intended for those missing a sense of humor. Any resemblance to actual events or allegations are purely coincidental. Before listening, please relieve yourself, as possible adverse effects include spontaneous bladder leakage, mild hysteria, and sudden release of dopamine. Names have been changed to protect the innocent and guilty. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, Karen.
Welcome to Coding Consultant Confessions with Toni Elhoms, Stacie Buck, and Victoria Moll. Unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic. In this podcast, Toni, Stacie, and Victoria come together to share unique perspectives, engaging dialogue, entertaining commentary, and funny stories for those working in the healthcare industry. And now, here are your hosts, Toni, Stacie, and Victoria.
If you're a medical coding consultant, you know this job can be challenging, but also very, very rewarding. And it's really important, though, to have a sense of humor about all of it and to have good connections that you can have that sense of humor with. So I'm excited to share the new Coding Consultant Confessions podcast with you. And this podcast will feature lots of hilarious stories as well as insight from behind the scenes. So whether you're just kind of starting out in your career or you've been doing coding or professional consulting or business for years, there's going to be something here for you. So make sure you're tuning in for lots of the information and relatable content that we're going to be providing. I'm Victoria Moll. I am joined here by the amazing Toni Elhoms and Stacie Buck, and we are here to celebrate the highs and the lows of not necessarily just being medical coding consultants, but also just female entrepreneurs. So in this episode, we're just going to introduce the podcast and introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about how we came together. I'm going to start with Stacie Buck for her introduction.
Thank you, Victoria. So I'm happy to be here with these two amazing ladies, Toni and Victoria, who I have had as guests on my podcast last year, and just had such a great time, chatting with them. And I'm happy to be working on a joint venture with them in the podcast space. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Stacie Buck, and currently I am president and senior consultant at RadRx, and I am based in Florida. And that is my own consulting company where I focus on providing consulting services, auditing, outsourced coding, education for providers of diagnostic radiology and interventional radiology services. I'm probably most well known in the interventional radiology space, and that is where I spend most of my time. So, like many of us who are in this profession, I never planned to be in this profession. I didn't even know such a thing existed. I actually fell into it. I actually had gone to college. I started at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, and I was going to major in business administration. And my first semester in college, I got a temp job at the surgery center next to the college, and I was working in medical records. And my boss at the time, she was an ART, the old RHIT credential. And I had to laugh because I'm like, you need a credential to do this? Like, what are you talking about? I didn't see why it was necessary at that time. But then the longer I worked in medical records and then started to learn additional things, I saw, I think that there's value in pursuing a career in health information management. It wasn't quite called HIM at that time. It was still called medical record administration, like old school. That's how old I am. I'm older than these other two ladies. So it was still medical record administration back then. Well, I'm not from the time of medical record librarians, ladies, okay? That would be like grandma like age, like medical record librarians is what they used to be. So I've come a long way in the profession, but I decided that I wanted to pursue a more specialized bachelor's degree because what I was hearing from people that were graduating with a bachelor's in business admin, they weren't having much luck finding jobs because it's a generic degree, market is flooded with those people. And I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. So that was kind of where I got my start. And then from there, I just worked my way up and, went to another facility and worked in medical records again, but I got experience with medical coding. Then when I finished school, I became a revenue analyst for HCA. And so I got to work in the revenue cycle area. And then after that, I went on to work in radiology. I really started my radiology experience back in 2000. And I went to work for one of the nation's, at the time, largest diagnostic imaging providers. And I was first their internal auditor and then their corporate compliance officer while I was there. And then from there, when that company closed, unfortunately, I dabbled in a few things that I didn't exactly enjoy. So we don't have to talk about those. I'm sure I'll talk about them in a future podcast. We've all had jobs that we don't like. And yeah, I ran into a few of those. And then I went to work for a billing and consulting company, then eventually was a partner in a billing and consulting company. And now I am like on my own doing the consulting in the radiology space. I've also been an adjunct instructor at the local community college as well. And I'm a huge proponent of getting involved in your professional association, having served at the local level in the HIM Association, also at the state level with the Florida Health Information Management Association, having been president like many years ago. So I'm a huge advocate for volunteering because that will help you in your career, the networking. You also get to learn a bunch of new skills and serving in a lot of those leadership volunteer positions. So that is the short version of my story. So Toni, why don't you share with the audience your experience, how you came into this profession?
Sure. I'm so pumped to be here with my besties, Victoria and Stacie. It's just like so amazing that we're collaborating on this podcast venture. So, my name is Toni Elhoms. I've been in the industry for 13 years. I am credentialed with the American Academy of Professional Coders, the AAPC, and the American Health Information Management Association, also known as AHIMA. Did I say that right, Stacie? Did I pronounce all the acronyms?
It's supposed to be AHIMA. I have a thing about that, and Toni called me out on it. She goes, "Why do you always call it AHIMA?"
She
And
totally
I said,
does.
I just do. AHIMA, I don't like it. It doesn't sound right. It's just my thing.
I know. So yeah, that actually like sparked this big conversation between us because I was like, "Hey, is it I'm not even going to say it because I think it's going to make Stacie's blood boil. Is it FHIMA or is it pronounced like, Bahima?" And she's like, absolutely not. How hard is it to spell out these abbreviations? Like, it's really not that hard. And so I try to.
I'll let people get away with AHIMA. I'm sorry, AHIMA. I will not let them get away with FAHIMA. I absolutely hate that. It sounds like you're about to swear or something. I don't like it.
We'll have to
Just
do
a personal preference.
We'll have to do another episode on that. But I'm an internationally known speaker and recognized subject matter expert. So I started out in the field actually working in medical records, and then I transitioned into billing, and then I transitioned into coding. And then from that point, got into auditing, education, and consulting. So I've worked in pretty much every setting, in the hospital setting, in the physician practice setting, in the consulting setting. And then 3 years ago, I started my own company, Alpha Coding Experts. So ACE is a business to business healthcare consulting firm. And we do all of the normal healthcare business consulting stuff. So coding and compliance audits. We do a lot of practice management support. So, for example, a provider will come to me and say, "Hey, I want to get better rates with insurance. Can you help us renegotiate our contracts?" They could be a startup and need a full suite of contracts altogether. So, I do a lot more on the practice management side these days than I do in the rev cycle and coding space. But the cool thing about Alpha Coding Experts is that I've built a team of incredible people. I literally get out of bed every single day and I'm so excited to do what I do. It's just like the most amazing feeling. And collaborating with Stacie and Victoria is a lot of fun because we share that in common. We're
3 female entrepreneurs. We're all industry thought leaders. We're influencers. And so that's something that I think is just really cool. I also serve as an editorial advisory board member for the Coding Institute. So I'm regularly asked to contribute to the publication, to review other coding experts' work, to provide insight and commentary on different matters. I also do a lot of work as an expert witness. So being an expert witness, we'll probably have to do like an entire episode on that, is one of the most challenging and fulfilling opportunities that I've had in this space. And I'll definitely, obviously, dive into that more as we get into that area of what we do. And we'll probably do just like an entire episode about it. But think of like Law and Order or like a courtroom show and what you see on TV. That's like kind of very similar to what experts do in this capacity. So it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. As Stacie said, I also do a lot of volunteer work. I'm very much a proponent of to whom much is given, much is expected. So all of us, all 3 of us have given so much back to the profession by volunteering, getting involved with our local chapters, our local professional associations, serving in leadership positions. And if you're somebody that's just starting out in the industry, that is a gold mine. It literally is this network of people that can help you and that you can tap into and really get context as to how to navigate through this profession. So that's just a little bit about me. Victoria, tell us about you, although you don't need an introduction.
Oh my
Who
God.
doesn't know Victoria? People are thinking, okay, this is Victoria Moll, YouTube sensation. Who are these other 2 losers with her? Like, seriously, like they're riding her coattails.
Not even. But yeah, I'm Victoria Moll. I am the proud Reading Area Community College certificate in medical insurance and billing graduate. And one of the things I really love about medical billing and coding is that you can be someone who just has a certificate from your community college. And if you want to really invest yourself, you can do a hell of a lot with it. So I've been in the industry since 2007. I've worked, I started out working in charge entry, so just inputting medical codes all day back when we were on ICD 9 instead of ICD 10, and just worked my way up. After I finished school, we needed a lot of medical coders in the organization I was working at, and they said, we're going to bring in an AAPC instructor. If you want to invest and get your CPC, if you pass, we'll reimburse you the cost of the course. And I went, yep, sign me up. Here's my check. I'm going to show up. And passed my CPC. And then it was just kind of what was the next step from there? And what was the next step from there? So shortly after the AAPC came out with their auditing certification, so I became a certified auditor because I had an interest in that. It's just grown so much. I went from charge entry to working in AR. I didn't work in AR for a very long period of time. So sometimes people will ask me billing questions and I'm like, look, I was in AR for like a hot minute. So whatever denial things you're looking at, I know of, but I don't have any intimate current knowledge of. And then I finally got into a coding position, and I've coded a ton of different specialties on the pro fee side. I started out doing hospitalist services, general surgery, and then I'm most interested in, most known for my specialization in plastic and reconstructive surgery. So I've seen a lot of things in that arena: the skin grafts, the wound procedures, the breast reconstructions, the liposuctions, the grafts and flaps and cleft palate repairs. I always used to chuckle because every single report that I would get that was a dog bite, it was always a pit bull. And having seen that so much, I would always tell myself, I am never, ever, ever in my life adopting a pit bull because clearly, nothing against the breed, but it just so happened that because there was a high percentage of them in the area, all of the dog bites that wound up in the emergency room and had to get fixed by plastic surgery were pit bulls. And I wound up adopting a pit bull anyway. And he's the kindest, sweetest little dog and I love him. And he lays in bed with me and keeps me warm at night. And his name is Loki. But yeah, so I wound up getting into auditing positions through, like the other girls have said, my volunteer work. I started volunteering at local chapters. I started getting comfortable speaking at chapter events. I started writing for Healthcare Business Monthly. And then they said, hey, well, since you wrote for Healthcare Business Monthly, how would you like to turn your topic that you wrote for into a presentation for our national convention? And in no time, there I was, like flying out to Vegas to do presentations for HealthCon. And I've spoken at HealthCon at the national level, regional level, multiple times now over the years. Worked my way up to a senior coder and then a senior supervisor of medical coding. So I supervised like the high level coders. At various times I supervised like the entire coding team, but mostly I supervised the higher level coders, like our auditor educator team for a very large organization that was kind of split. Like half of it was more internal medicine, primary care, family medicine, geriatric medicine, and then a lot of surgical specialties as well. So I've kind of had my hands in a little bit of just about everything on the pro fee side. And then I've worked a lot with residents, educating residents, making sure that they know when they do and don't need to bring their preceptor in, all those different teaching physician guidelines that they have to know, giving them that little flavor of, when you go out on your own, this is what you're going to need to know. This is how it's different in, when you're working independently versus when you are working in a resident clinic. So I've done a lot of auditing. And then I'm most popularly known for my YouTube channel, of course. I cover a lot of different things on the YouTube channel: E&M coding, certification prep, how to get into medical billing and coding. And then I do fun stuff where I like dress up like a pirate and I'm like, how do we code for scurvy and peg legs and, eye patches and things like that. The most rewarding thing I think about the YouTube channel is, when people pass their certification exams and they say, oh, well, you helped me along, obviously. But also when I see that it's being used as resources by other teachers, that people are in coding classes and they're like, my teacher told me to watch my videos, or I'm in this online class and they were linking to your videos, or, my teacher's playing your videos while we're in class. So that's really cool. And I think that's one of the rewarding things is just that I've not only been a resource for coders, but resources for other educators, that there's some fun things that they can provide in the classroom setting. And then I wind up getting, some more subscribers out of that, or that people are sharing it with their fellow coding classmates. So
Victoria, you can't go to the Facebook AAPC group without seeing your name like all over it. It's all over it.
True story everywhere.
I've stopped watching it because I'm so afraid that I'm going to see something, and I know you're not supposed to self promote there, and I'm always like so paranoid that someone's going to be like, oh, Victoria's probably telling people to post these things about her, and that's why she's so popular, and I don't want to I have to stay kind of like out of it at this point.
You don't have to say anything. There's plenty of fans that will speak for you.
Absolutely. So off topic, okay, on the self-promotion thing, this is my commentary. I'm going off on a tangent here. I understand that you shouldn't go out there and self-promote and like spam like in groups. I get that. But if somebody comes to the group and they have a specific ask and they're looking for something, and if you have that something, I think you should be able to respond because they inquired. Because sometimes when people are looking for what I have to offer, I can't say anything about it. I have to wait and see if somebody else is going to say something about it. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And I'm like, if somebody inquired, can we bend the rules? If somebody posted and asked, I'm not, coming out and just trying to promote my stuff. So anyway, that's a side note there. It's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those kind of delicate areas. I guess the concern is that they don't want things to like snowball, because as soon as you give someone like a little leeway, someone's going to find a way to like totally abuse that in some fashion, that they'll be like, oh, well, we'll plant people in there to ask questions so that I can promote myself or something,
Totally. I totally will do that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Spam culture is out of this
They
world.
they can kind of do that now. I mean, if you wanted to take it upon yourself, you could do that. You could have people do it, and then, hey, if I get business, I'll pay you. It's totally doable the way it's set up right now. Not that I would spend the time and effort doing it, but it's doable.
So yeah, with the different concepts and wealths of knowledge that we all have worked with, let's talk a little bit about kind of why we came together. Now, I believe, Stacie, this was originally your brainchild, correct?
Well, I don't know if I can take full credit for it. I'll give like half of the credit to Toni. So Toni and I had dinner in Orlando back in January, and Toni and I knew that we had wanted to do something and collaborate with each other. You know, didn't really talk about anything specific, but then during that dinner, it's like, hey, what about a podcast and doing something collaborative? Because I have my own podcast, she has hers. You have your YouTube video. But I think we all agree that it's just more fun if you're doing something like with your friends and people that you have a good relationship with, instead of just the standard format that's out there. I know that all of us watch the Chuckleheads, Jordan, Eric, and Sean there, and they have something great going. And so, guys, if you're listening, it was never our intention to copy you. Toni and I were not even thinking about you guys when we were having our discussion about what we wanted to do. But then it occurred to us, well, are they going to think that we're the female version of the Chuckleheads? Because also, a pure coincidence, not planned, our podcast is CCC, Coding Consultant Confessions, like the guys over there. But anyway, so it came about because Toni and I wanted to collaborate. And so we just thought it would be really fun to do a podcast together as female entrepreneurs and just talk about all those crazy things that we have gone through in the profession over the years and that we see each and every day. And we wanted to bring in other people to join us. And so ultimately, Victoria came on board, with us. I still question why, because Victoria does not need Toni or Stacie at all. We're very happy to have her on board. I believe Victoria will help us achieve, numbers much higher than we would have without Victoria. But yeah, so I don't know, Toni, do you want to share your thoughts and how, we just had so much fun at that dinner and had so many funny conversations. We just thought that would make great content for a pod. Hey, this could be a story. We could do an episode on this. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had such a fun time at that dinner that we identified a gap in the market, right? There's not somebody that's doing this, all female entrepreneurs that have teamed up and collaborated. So I feel like we've got something really special. The idea behind the podcast, I think, is really just to show, like, yes, we're all authorities in the industry. We're all thought leaders. We're all subject matter experts. We're all influencers. But we want to come together and show we have so much more depth to us than medical coding, right? Like, we have so many great stories. We want to entertain you. We want to make you laugh. We want to share in some of the universal headaches and funnies that we all have, right? And so we wanted to be the trendsetters to do it in the industry. Victoria is, this literally this like star, right? She's larger than life. And funny story, Victoria and I became friends way before she was YouTube famous. We've actually been friends for a long time. And in the back of my mind, when I was talking to Stacie, she was just like kind of always there. Like, okay, Victoria's got to do this. Like, this is definitely something that we need to get her in on. But even though she's my friend, I almost felt like she was like larger than life and would be like, no. Victoria?
Yeah, no, you remember the conversations. It was like, well, why would Victoria want to like join up with this? Like, she's got her hands full with her YouTube channel. She's wildly successful. She just announced she's starting another YouTube channel for an idea that she had. Why would she ever want to be a part of this? And when you talked to her, I was shocked when she said she wanted to be a part of it. I was thrilled, but I was shocked.
Well, it sounded like so much fun, and I was just like, I don't want them doing stuff and I get left out on the side. And plus, you get to a point where you're like, I want to talk about stuff that's not particularly like how to code for certain scenarios. Like, you get so many questions, and even like on the YouTube channel, I'll have videos that are not at all like today, I think I did like, what is the revenue cycle? And someone will be like, hey, Victoria, I'm having trouble coding for gastrostomies. Do you know how I can get them paid? I'm like, okay. So it's just nice to have an outlet with people that are in a similar situation as me to talk about some of the things. And I think there, with the state of the country, the world as it's been the past couple of years, there are a lot more people that are interested in I'm interested in being my own boss. I want to set my own hours. I want the flexibility. And I think we can have some very open discussions about, what that looks like. I'm sure there's lots of people that look at me on social media and see, Victoria's doing all this cool stuff. She's going to these fun events. She has all this, clout, I guess you could call it. And behind the scenes, yeah, I have a 10-year-old daughter on the autism spectrum. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize. Like, even when I'm out having on vacations with her and we're out having fun, like, there's a lot of break times that have to happen. There's a lot of things that have to be navigated to prevent breakdowns. There's a lot of frustrations that go on behind the scenes. And there's even, funny things that we have to deal with, just even being presenters. Like, when you show up somewhere and the unexpected happens and you feel like you're the hot professional and you can take care of it. And in the moment you're like, I need an adult. I need someone who's more responsible than I do to please handle this. Thank you.
Well, and I think the other thing is we've all collaborated together before and we've felt just like great synergy. Our chemistry, the dialogues that we have between us, it's almost like we should be hitting the record button when we just talk and have conversations because there's so much there. It's a natural evolution.
That's good. That's good and that's bad because there's some stuff, some conversations probably shouldn't be for public consumption. I'm just saying.
Well, our podcast is unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic.
Mostly. Now, obviously, we have to be somewhat, filtered to a certain degree. It's a professional podcast, is what we're like getting at. So but we all are very honest, direct, straightforward people. We're not shy about speaking our minds. We have very strong opinions about things. And, like Victoria said, you just want to talk about something other than coding sometimes. That's why I started my podcast last year, because I was so tired of talking about technical subject matter. And when I told people I was thinking about starting a podcast or a YouTube channel, they all wanted me to talk about coding. And I said, I can tell you right now, I will not talk about coding in a podcast or on a YouTube channel. It's absolutely not happening. I won't do it. So for me, it's been the reason why I like doing the podcast. I'm coming up on almost a year. By the time this pilot episode releases, I'll be past my official 1-year anniversary. I like it because I like having in-depth conversations with people, not just people that I know, but people that I don't know. I just recently interviewed Eric Rubenstein, and oh my gosh, I could talk to Eric Rubenstein for like 8 hours, like seriously, and just listen to all his stories. I told him today, I go, you're one of the few guests I actually want to let talk like the whole time. And I don't feel like I want to interrupt you because I want to keep listening to you. And he's like, you're my number one fan. So it's just great talking to different people and getting to hear their stories and learn more about the profession. And it's Brian Quee. All of us know Brian Quee. I consider Brian Quee a friend. He's the one who brought me into the podcasting world. So Brian, if you're listening, shout out to you. And if I hadn't gotten into podcasting, I wouldn't be doing this with you ladies like right now. So it's definitely been a progression, and I'm really excited. I'm more excited about working with you than I am doing my own podcast. Like, seriously, just because of the collaboration. And I know we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to have a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to working with you.
Same, Stacie, same. I know everybody's probably like, wait, Toni has a podcast? Yes, I do have a podcast. I took a break after I had a baby, and it's just been really challenging with an exploding business. Like, I kid you not, guys, our business has exploded. But I do plan on getting back into the podcast. I don't think I'm going to do it every single Monday like I used to, but when we came together and developed this podcast, I'm so excited. Like, I'm way more excited about this than I am about my own podcast, because I think you guys are just going to get so much from our trio, so much value, so many laughs. You're going to hear unique perspectives. I mean, it's just going to be incredibly entertaining. But if you are the type of person that is easily offended by things that people say, or you want something that's politically correct, this is probably not the podcast for you. Just saying.
I love it. I love it. So, whether you're a female entrepreneur, you're just starting out, you've been in the game for a while, make sure you join us for our different podcast episodes because we're going to be covering everything from coding to life to business. And you never really know what kind of shocking stories we're going to have in store for you. So, in the meantime, don't forget to tune in next episode for another confession.
Thank you for tuning in to Coding Consultant Confessions with Toni Elhoms, Stacie Buck, and Victoria Moll. Unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic. Connect with the Coding Consultant Confessions podcast on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Simply search for Coding Consultant Confessions on any of these platforms to connect and engage with Toni, Stacie, and Victoria.